Hi, and welcome to Vinita's storytelling. Welcome to day 2 of the Blitzkrieg. Today, I'm going to be reading to you an excerpt from the first short story from my series 12 Twisted Man-Woman Tales. The story is called A Polygamous Man, and you'll find it on Amazon as well as on my website vinitawrites.com/books. Here goes. A Polygamous Man. I first saw her at the fundraising dinner. She was gorgeous, every curve perfect. And suddenly, I couldn't seem to take in enough oxygen. I wanted to breathe in her fragrance, but my nostrils twitched in vain, while my lungs pumped ever more feebly, and my heart started first pounding, and then fluttering feebly. Raman's grip on my arm was so painful that I gasped, and the air rushed into my lungs. I felt faint with too much air. "What's the matter, man? You were turning blue. Are you claustrophobic? Let's get out of here," suggested Raman. "I'm fine now," I stammered. "But what happened to you? Out of the blue, just like that, you start feeling faint?" persisted Raman. "I don't know, but I really am all right now. Don't make such a big deal out of it." "Fine, but if this happens once more, we're out of here right away. I don't want something to happen to you." Irritation clipped my words. "Just let it go." "Sure. It's just that these days, even people in their early 30s seem to be dying of silent heart attacks or stress or even of nothing at all. I've heard of one death every week on average for the past 6 months. And face facts, Neel. You're on the wrong side of 45. "An aging bull," he grinned. "A bull, nevertheless," I smirked. "Hey, no way! No way, Neel, you crazy idiot! Kala will walk out on you. If you mess with another woman again, she will walk out on you. My wife had a tough enough time persuading her to stay the last time around." "Why don't you get the bloody message? You're a married man, not a stallion at a stud farm. Jerk." "Raman, I can handle Kala." I brushed my wife aside mentally. "But I won't leave here without meeting that woman. The one in the green dress. Be a pal and get lost, will you?" "Neel, for God's sake, get a hold on yourself. Stop thinking with your dick, will you?" "Shit, I swear if you go ahead with this one, I won't know you anymore." I started walking away, but was arrested by Raman grabbing my shoulder. "Don't count on me or my wife to bail you out this time around, Neel, and stay away from me. I think I'm done knowing you." I threw off his restraining hand, all my senses hyper-tuned to the woman in the green dress across the room as I walked towards her. I'd started to sweat slightly. When I was in my teens, I had mistakenly assumed this was a sign of nervousness. After innumerable women, I knew differently. This was my body working for my mind. This was my body preparing to assault the senses of the woman I wanted so badly, I wouldn't be able to focus on anything or anyone till I'd got her into bed. Sounds crazy, I know. In this day and age of sexual caution, I was rampant. Of course, I took precautions. I didn't want to get sick, and neither did I want Kala to pick up some sexually transmitted disease from me. I loved her. That's why she was my wife. Or rather, that's why she continued to be my wife. The women were nothing, just an itch I had to scratch. Kala was the only one who had ever mattered since I first fell in love with her. She was the only one I loved. And she refused to understand. But I couldn't be bothered with thinking about Kala right now. My lady in green was just an arm's length away. Unobtrusively, I joined the group. A woman who had earlier made a moving speech on the plight of orphans in the city vacated her place in the circle, making way for me. I was standing at 7 o'clock to my lady's 3 o'clock. All eyes were turned to 9 o'clock, where an up-and-coming suave politician was narrating a spicy, behind-the-scenes tidbit about a celebrated industrialist. As he wound down to everyone's exclamations of disbelief, I asked him, "I wonder where you heard that?" He understood that the question was rhetorical. And then I looked at the lady in green. As our eyes locked, I felt hers widen slightly as she kept looking. Greek god. I'd first heard the term as a callow 17-year-old, when two girls standing in the corridor who had been eyeing me muttered this as I rushed past them. I resolved to get to the library and find a dictionary before the day was out. Greek was the term people used when they didn't understand anything. But what was Greek god? Were they making fun of me? Was I boring or traditional? The minute the bell rang for recess, I rushed to the library, where the teacher asked me who I was and what I wanted. I told her I needed the dictionary. "You're Neel Zutshi of 12E. I haven't seen you all year. Why haven't you attended a single library period between April and December? I know you play football and tennis for the school, but practice is held either before or after school hours. Why have you never attended the library class?" I'd completely forgotten about this aspect of visiting the library. Our school had one period a week when students of each class were to sit in the library reading whatever they wanted, at the end of which they could issue out a book of their choice. My interests were sports and girls, and between these two, I'd managed to slime out of attending any library periods. "Ma'am, I'm sorry," I mumbled. "May I please take a look at the dictionary? I need to find the meaning of a word." As the extension phone at her desk began to ring, she nodded, and I sloped off relieved. I'd almost made the mistake of asking her where the dictionary was kept, and she'd have taken the opportunity to chew me out some more. I discovered that there were many dictionaries, and I found the meaning of Greek god. In the next 20 years, I heard many girls and then women say this to me and about me. The term was out of fashion now, but I read it in the eyes of the lady in green as she took in my appearance. Greek god. Good skin, healthy tan, sparkling black eyes, set neither too far apart nor too close. Aquiline nose, sculpted jaw with an aggressive chin. Sensuous lips, hairline receding slightly. Salt liberally sprinkled through peppery naughty boy curls that went all the way from deep chocolate brown to sun-bleached pale gold. She had gotten to my perfectly knotted red silk tie and cream linen shirt under the midnight blue jacket when we were called in to dinner, and her eyes jerked away from my chest. I fell into step beside her. "Hi, I'm Neel Zutshi," I said, careful not to extend my hand or infringe on her physical space in any way. "Tamanna Kamdar," she responded with a small smile. "And before you ask, I'm here as a private individual." She'd taken the wind out of my sails. "That's rare!" I burst out. Then, as she raised a questioning eyebrow, "I mean, most people are here because the companies they work with support the charity, isn't it?" "I don't know that it's a rule," she said. We'd reached the dining room, and I held back slightly at the door, unwilling to part ways with her before we'd spoken more and established a connection. In any case, the odds were that she would not be seated at my table. It seemed best to dally for a while. She seemed to feel the same way and drew away from the door, letting others walk in. "You're obviously representing some company," she said. "Computers for you," I said, supremely confident that she would know the name that was as synonymous with software programming as Coke was with beverages. "Aha," she said, with a slightly ironic twist to her voice. "And what do you do there?" "Vice President," I said, a shade unwillingly. "Which division?" "Hey, there are a bunch of VPs at CFY, you know." I dodged. She let it be. "What about you?" I asked. "Oh, I run a small graphics design studio." "Creative." My turn to raise an eyebrow. "Oh, please, it's just a job and as much work as any other job." We were practically the only two people left outside the dining room, and I could see the maître d'œuvre begin a quick walk towards us. They could only start serving dinner once everyone had been seated. "Tamanna," I said urgently, lowering my voice a little, "can I take you out to lunch tomorrow?" She took a half step back in surprise. Head held on one side, she considered for a moment before she agreed. "Okay, I'd like that." "Why don't we meet after dinner to exchange numbers and decide when and where we'll meet?" I hurried on as the maître d'œuvre reached us. She nodded as he whisked her away to her table, while a minion hovering nearby showed me to mine. I didn't taste the meal, which was pronounced delicious by almost everyone at the table. Raman, seated beside me, studiously avoided me. Made it a bit awkward, but couldn't be helped. As I'd expected, our table had representatives of computer companies, and everyone talked shop. Who was coming out with new software, new applications, who had a revolutionary new idea which would give them maximum market share for the next 6 months, who was cornering the market in Brazil and Argentina, who was moving to which company or location, and so on. Dinner done, I barely bid them goodbye, turning to look for Tamanna. I could feel Raman's eyes boring into my back, but he was like a shiny stone that flashes past you as you drive at 100 kilometers per hour. You notice it for an instant and then it's gone for good. She turned up at my elbow, arresting my forward movement with a gentle hand in the vicinity of my elbow. Smoothly, I took the opportunity to engulf her hand in mine and lead her out of there. "Have a coffee now, while we fix up for tomorrow?" "No thanks, I'll be up all night." I drew her out of the banquet hall where the charity dinner had been organized and towards the hotel coffee shop. "Would you mind if I have some coffee? You can join me with tea or some dessert." "Tea sounds good. And don't mention the word dessert. I really need to lose some weight," she said, giving me the perfect excuse to look at her body. I ran my eyes down her luscious curves and back up till I looked into her eyes. She was still, recognizing what was going on. "I think you're simply perfect," I said huskily, and her eyes jerked away. She started walking towards the coffee shop. Over coffee, I resolved not to be so obvious. I kept my eyes where they should be, and my arms and legs well out of the way. We decided to meet for lunch the next day at a small eatery serving pasta. It was some distance from her office, and when she offered to meet me there, I told her that I'd like to pick her up, take her out to lunch, and drop her back. She agreed, and we left the hotel. I retrieved my keys from the valet, explaining that I would see the lady to her car and then find my own. Tamanna was looking at me quizzically. VP and no driver? Amazing. It must not be a very big division after all, she choked out. I turned to her in surprise. I didn't think my designation would be so important to her. But no, she was merely amused and half trying to hide it. I played along, You noticed? Blast. I was hoping you'd have forgotten that I never did name that division. We walked to her car that balmy spring evening, talking about inconsequential stuff, and with every step, I wanted to go back to her house with her. Get a grip, Neel. She might be married, might have small squally brats or dogs or both, might be living with parents, might be one of a 50-strong traditional Indian joint family. It could be anything. I didn't want the evening to end. But it was really much too late to ask her to spend any more time with me. I'd have to wait until tomorrow. After I'd seen her off, I loped towards my new BMW Series 7. I did not rub my hands in glee, but I sure felt like it. Home now to Kala. God, how I loved her. Why not get her a gift? But where would I find a gift at 10 minutes to midnight? Here's a better idea. Let me take her out to coffee. I called her before I reached the car. Kala, darling, you weren't sleeping, were you? The warm, intimate voice in my ear giggled. You told me to keep the bed warm, Neel. What do you expect? Darling, it was an awful evening. People droning on and on about those orphans. I want to flirt with you in public. Let's go out for coffee. Get dressed? I'm leaving the hotel now and should be home in 20 minutes. Wear something slinky and we might not go back home at all. We'll just book a room at the hotel. So this was an excerpt of my short story, A Polygamous Man, tale number 1 in my series 12 Twisted Man-Woman Tales. Please feel free. You'll find the book, the short story on Amazon as well as on my website. I hope you enjoyed this and I look forward to your joining me tomorrow for another excerpt from another short stories from the same series. In the meanwhile, if you enjoyed it, I'd love for you to give me a thumbs up and to share it with your friends. Thank you and see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.